So you've got the order right up there. Good afternoon, everybody. These sessions have been going a bit long between one and the other, so if it's okay, we can start early? Okay, why don't we do that then? My name is Ken Forster. I am the Executive Director of Momenta Partners, and it's my great pleasure to facilitate this panel on IIoT as a key enabler of business models and revenues. Today we've got an interesting panel because we've actually hand-selected this panel to look at the value chain of IIoT, industrial IoT, if you will. The idea is that IIoT is an ecosystem. There's not a winner-take-all. There's not a single player you're going to go to work and develop industrial IoT solutions. So it's very critical to have an ecosystem of partners, and we're lucky today to represent really every step in that ecosystem. Starting from Dr. Christian Barsch, who is with Kraus-Maffei Vertical Solutions, so a large manufacturer of plastic injection machine tools. So think about that as the OEMs, if you will, of major connected equipment. Francesca Cattiano, who is a senior account exec with Relayer. They are a large platform and application enablement platform player, bought by Munich Re last year. And actually one of the more interesting models of how to go to market with an outcome philosophy versus a technology one. Dr. Philippe Bolliger, who's the CEO of ThingStream. ThingStream is a provider of a platform effectively to abstract communications. You'll see Momenta actually, in full transparency, just announced an investment in ThingStream recently. And he'll talk a lot about the communications layer. And then finally, Dr. Raphael Salme, who is the CEO of and global president for Richardson RFPD. So a manufacturer and a marketplace of end devices and part of the Aero company as well, a well-known electronics distribution company in the United States. So I'll say a few words to kind of start things off, a little bit on Momenta. So Momenta are connected industry or digital industry growth partners. We have three practices: an advisory practice, so think digital transformation and largely buy-side M&A for large companies looking for digital technologies. We have a talent practice that has placed over 200 key executives at very large firms, and a ventures practice that makes investments in a lot of interesting digital disrupting startups. So think about it this way: we have the whole ecosystem from buyers to the companies that they buy, and in the middle we help everybody with talent solutions, which, as we've seen with a lot of the presentations, talent is one of the key enablers for digital transformation. So I'm going to show a couple slides that really give a sense of when we formed our company back in 2012, but really looked at it in 2015, what were the enablers of digital transformation? Because I think it's interesting to see this conference focus a lot on the outcomes, right? The use cases, the value that's created from IoT and digital transformation. So what are the enablers? It's these catalysts. We like to say the transformation of deep industry by Moore's law. And this is since 2010, the cost of sensors have dropped by 2x, cost of bandwidth by 40x, the cost of processing by 60x. Cost of storage by 25x. These are the catalysts that are allowing us to rethink how we do everything from farming to manufacturing to producing energy to our healthcare and everything in between. So this is technology catalyzed, but it's not simply just technology. And IoT is just one of the catalysts that we like to look at. But yet you look at the number of devices. We used to laugh when I think it was Ericsson said 50 billion devices by 2020, but I'm hearing actually projections of larger amounts of devices now, because we're not limiting ourselves to those devices that are strictly IP, if you will, enabled. And so you see some of the potential economic impacts in 2025 that have been talked about in terms of the trillions of value at stake for key industries based on just this one catalyst. Dr. Jeremy Rifkin published a book several years ago called the Zero Marginal Cost Society. And he talked about really three internets, of course the communications internet we naturally think of, but the energy internet and the supply chain internet, and how all three of these would eventually come together to create what he called truly combinatorial innovation. So think about it this way. The black line are effective, I'm sorry, the red line is effectively the technologies that we're naturally thinking of, right? The black line defines really interesting new use cases or business models that are enabled by those technologies. And the disruptive scenarios come at the intersection of the two. So if I take mobile, IoT, big data, and put it together with the sharing economy, I've effectively created Uber. Right? And you can take these scenarios and start to look at them. So there's a bit of a cause and effect between these of how they all come together. The part that we like to walk away with is it's a combinatorial innovation from all of these technologies come together. It's not a singular technology. The other aspect is if you think about what really the transformation is that is happening in industry, it's not necessarily about people just optimizing their place in the value chain. If I'm a pump manufacturer, I might have sold through a very traditional model in the past, where I manufactured it, I went to market via a third-party sales, and had it serviced versus a third-party service network. What happens the first time I connect that pump and it's actually talking back to me as the manufacturer? I've basically disintermediated the whole physical value chain that's there. So you have to think very broadly about what the new world looks like when that pump in digital sense is talking back to me versus in the physical sense. And so we see digital transformation as value chain disruption. And where we see the biggest opportunities are people moving their place or expanding their place in the value chain. We like to say product as a service or service as a product. Those are defining statements that basically say we're going to move down the value chain, and we may move from different revenue, from CapEx models to ultimately recurring revenue models. Final slide from my perspective, and then I'll turn it over to my esteemed panel. When we look at it from a Momenta perspective, both on our investments and yet the whole area that we advise on and we place key talent, we've basically taken two swaths. Vertical swath, that is the technologies that are enabling applications, so applications, networks, devices as an example, and verticals. For us, energy, manufacturing, smart spaces, and supply chain. Why? Because if you were to look at any chart back in 2015, those were the four biggest bubbles that will be disrupted, but it also is because we're very deep practitioners in this space, and we bring that practitioner expertise toward advising companies on which companies to buy, investing in young companies in the space, and helping to place key talent, primarily chief digital officers. So with that in mind, I am going to hand it off to Dr. Barsh, who is going to talk about the perspective from OEM.
Thank you, Ken. So let me quickly introduce myself. So my name is Christian. I'm with Kraus Maffei now for 12 months roundabout in the role of head of digital solutions. So I'm responsible for the overall connectivity of our machines globally, all the data which you can capture out of it. In my past, I've done several roles in the context of research. I've worked a lot in the research area, in the IT and digital context. Worked for Deloitte as a consultant in the US. Founded my own company, Bamero AG, which is still existing on the business process management side. And in my last station, I was responsible at the Linde Group, Linde Gas and Engineering, to set up, together with some colleagues, the digital base camp to really drive the digital transformation within the company. I've mentioned Kraus Maffei. So who are we? Some of you might know us, some of you might not. We are one of the global leading companies and manufacturers of machinery to process and produce plastics and rubber, including all the systems behind that. It's a very traditional company, so as you can see, 100 years of experience, 180 years of experience. We have more than 5,000 people globally who work for us, more than 60 locations. I mean, the numbers, they are visible. And actually, the portfolio covers everything around the life cycle of plastic, so to say, from production of plastic to really producing products made out of plastic. So what are typical products? as soon as you go into your car, you will see it. So typically it's all the interior which is inside a car is typically made out of a kind of plastic material, but it can also be consumer goods, like think about Lego or a toothbrush or something like that. But also we build the machines to produce tires for customers. So it's really a very broad portfolio which we can provide for our customers by using our machines. Back in 2018, which is not so long ago, we decided to completely change the way how to approach our customer and service life cycle. Because typically you sell a machine one time and that's kind of the core business of machinery or manufacturing. And we said, no, this will not be the future. We need to think about new revenue streams, new business models, and decided to just do stuff for and with our customers which generate value to them. And that's why we put together all the service activities, all the digital activities globally into one unit. So we have like more than 700 people now in this unit, and really make sure that everything which is customer touching, which has customer touch points is under one roof, including all the digital activities. And that basically was not enough. So we needed to make sure when we talk about the customer life cycle, think about new platforms, can be, for example, Gindumac, which we acquired, or where we have the majority actually now. It's a second-hand machinery platform, which is, by the way, located in Barcelona. And so here we provide the customers additional access, plus Polymor, which is a brand new platform for selling and trading materials like compounds, post-industrial waste. Think about circular economy and all the recyclates which need to be used in the future products. And also this is something which we set up and which is live since 2 weeks now. Very high visibility on the European level now. And so we now have an end-to-end digital driven, IoT-driven value chain for our customers. And I've just mentioned it, it's really IoT which enables all of this. Nothing would be possible without the connectivity of machines, of assets, including all the data we can capture out of it. And some typical products is just some examples which we already have in the market and which deliver quite nice value already to our customers. Is, for example, the productivity for your family, where this is a platform, an application platform, which we call social production, where we retrofit all our machines in the field with our customers. There are standard interfaces we can just use. We can connect these to a cloud or let it calculate on an edge device at the machine, and immediately, and that's the beauty, immediately after the connectivity, the people on the shop floor can see the productivity and the stability of our machines. So it's not an MES system, it's a bit more. It's really showing the state and the health of the machine, and on top of that, when we use the data, we can even do the predictive maintenance stuff, let the machine tell you what's going wrong, what the health status is, and so on and so forth. And based on that, we generated a nice application which we call machine to human interaction, because the machine is now part of kind of a chat for the shop floor. And it's communicating with the shop floor people. The people among each other communicate. And suddenly you have a complete different way of interacting and maintaining, operating your machines on the shop floor. It's not just for our machines, but also for competitive machines. So these are complete different new models which we generate. And of course, at the end, it can even last into or result into something like pay-per-use. So we just give a promise. People don't need to buy machines anymore, but they pay just for the output. This is then feasible, and we are currently launching this service. Actually, we will launch it 1st of January next year, that you can just buy the quality product as an output.
Good.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm pretty happy to be here to talk to you because that's a great chance for Relayer to talk on how IoT and generally technology could be impacted by a new business model and new way of thinking. I will introduce myself 1 minute shortly. I'm Francesca, I'm from Milan. I'm coming from a long path into the hardware industry. I opened my own company a couple of 3 years ago, working in hardware and software merging for IoT, and then I joined Relayer. I'm pretty proud about Relayer and how we do things, and I give you a clear example on this, asking you a simple question. How many of you in this room use any streaming services like Netflix or Hulu and so on? So, no, me too. So let me place you this funny example. I can try to sell you Netflix, telling you that there's a huge server connectivity sharing data streaming for your pleasure. Will you ever buy this? No, because you didn't even understand what I'm talking about. But if I'm selling you a streaming services, easy contents for you and your family, that's how the business goes. And I'm not selling you the huge value of Netflix, I'm selling you the pay-per-use model. So that's all about how Relay was born and was capable to reinvent itself as a company. So we've been born as a technology platform. We were talking before during our preparation about Wunderbar. Wunderbar was a great idea on how to connect devices and sensors to stream data and to great data. During our path, we also have done a few acquisitions in terms of hardwares and platforms to grow our knowledge in this kind of market. But then we understood that that was not enough. So our customer was starting asking us insurance on results and on outcomes. And that's, let me say, where Relayer start its own magic, because we are the only company in the world capable to make an insurance on outcomes. And this was the starting path of the thinking on a new mentality. And it's exactly where we start to help industrial company getting their own results. So our idea of industrial IoT is industrial company needs to rely on 3 key points. And these 3 key points are, we need to help any kind of industrial company to generate new revenue streams. Otherwise, technology is not helping us. The second is, we need to help industrial company into the business model transformation. We need to really help them to change. Change management is quite difficult, and it's really important if you want to tackle new market. And then, for sure, we need to save money. We need to earn money from this process. So we need to have cost process improvements and expense reductions and performance and processes monitoring. So, in my opinion, these are 3 key points for the IoT path. And just to be very, very fast, on this slide you see the path of the customer we are helping with. One of them is here in our exhibition. It's Sanexer, it's an Italian company I'm pretty proud of. All of them are really trying to reinvent their industry. The biggest example you see on this slide is Grohe. I think most of you know Grohe. Grohe were trying to find out how to scout for new revenue stream, and they engage with us. And we together define a new product, a new device that controls water damage and water leakage and so on. The good things of this device is, in terms of technology, there's nothing new. Most of you in this room could easily reach and understand the technology behind the device. What we made new together with Grohe was the business model and approaching the customer. So we have done the same in the automotive industry with Leoni, we have done the same in the machine builder with Coborn, and so on. The key of this is the merge between technology, services, financial, and the insurance. So I heard walking through the show, through the exhibition, all the company talking about ecosystem and partnership. True ecosystem means that somebody needs to merge the technology you carry and you produce, the services you take, the delivery you take, with financial services, because the customer wants the Netflix monthly pay-per-use. They don't care what stay behind, so the great technology behind. So just to be on time, otherwise I will talk too much. That's why we say we want to get partner, not customers. So we are really partnering with our customers because that's the only way to stay together.
Very good, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just quick introductions. Name is Philip, from Switzerland. I have a background in engineering. I actually started working in ubiquitous/pervasive computing almost 20 years ago, when quite a few of the things that we currently use have only been research topics. We then started with the first endeavor into doing something real with that technology, creating Kobachi, which was a company doing a B2C product using IoT technology, which then eventually became part of Husqvarna Group. And out of that, I did get quite a lot of learnings on what is important and what is necessary to make IoT a success for a bigger corporation when it's actually about transforming the business, when it's about implementing new business models. And one of the key components that, as per the DNA model, the device network and applications model that you use, Ken, that I like very much, we're doing the network. So that's what I'm doing with ThinkStream now. ThinkStream is the small company here. We're not as big as the other guys. We're also just started some 2 years ago, actually only started with the current products we have 1.5 years ago, a team of about 30 people in a few locations. And we're providing communications and connectivity as a service to make it as simple as possible for everybody to use this key component and actually make IoT, in whatever use case you're working, a success story. And the key things there are, we have seen different use cases, obviously with different requirements to connectivity. Mostly it's about low power, it's about security, all of these key requirements, but there is almost no one that can cater to that on a global level, and that's what we do with ThinkStream. We give you a solution that just works, and it works everywhere, no matter which technology you use, or no matter in which country you are, or however difficult the radio signal situation is in that point. So one of the key challenges we see is that going from device to enterprise, there is a few things that you need to get right. It's not just as simple as buying a piece of hardware and then finding someone that gives you access to the network. You have to consider a lot more things, and quite a few projects and quite a few endeavors in IoT, specifically in corporations that do that for the first time, struggle or get delayed or running over costs because you have to work with many companies. And we try to simplify that by just taking care of all the things in between. And one of the customers that's using that is the South African breweries, part of AB InBev, as an example of our technology in use. They have some 200,000 fridges out there. Believe it or not, but they lose 10% every year. Now these are industrial fridges, they're not quite cheap, so if you lose 10% of 200,000 fridges, that aggregates to a big sum, and they now track where the fridges are, just to make sure that they don't lose them anymore. And our solution there is they don't have to take care of any of the connectivity issues, no matter where the device is, and if we say everywhere, we truly mean everywhere. So this is an actual picture from the field where one of the fridges was installed, and they actually did take some measurements trying to figure out whether it's work. So that's ThinkStream, that's us, and I'm looking forward to discussion.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Rafael Salmi. I'm President and GM of Richardson RFPD. I've been on that role for 5 years, and prior to that, I've been 10 years with Arrow Electronics. So what I'm going to share with you today is two experiences, one a use case and one how we transform our own organization to be able to address the need of our customers to generate new value stream, improve productivity, and satisfy customers and get more business. So basically we are part of Arrow Electronics. It's a $30 billion public company with 200,000 customers around the globe. We've been founded in 1933 in Long Island, New York, and we've been basically aggregating and helping customers design semiconductor products, either discrete components, embedded, and software solution around the globe. Back in 2011, we noticed that one building block that is extremely important in IoT is connectivity. So basically, you know that it's all about the data. What are you going to do with this data to improve your business model and generate new value streams? So we noticed that we needed that secret sauce coming from RF and wireless and IoT machine-to-machine technology. So that's why we acquired Richardson RFPD that have been managing. It's a global organization, really deeply focused. But to address the need of customers, I would say we have two types of customers. Customers who have been doing machine-to-machine, utility companies or POS companies or retail or transportation for a long period of time, but there is a lot more sets of customers who have no clue what IoT, and matter of fact, they don't care. What is important for them is how they can extract data from their system to be able to improve their value proposition. So if I look at the traditional distribution landscape, was a lot of companies have two value proposition. One is really having engineering capability to help customers to design system, component, subsystems, and also a very strong supply chain to basically help customers to design the products that they bring to market. Design physical hardware, but also software. We've been very, I would say, in the last 5 years, working with our suppliers and customers and partners to basically move in the value our value proposition and be able to offer a complete stack. So we started historically for the last 30 years designing physical products, and then very rapidly we noticed that exactly what you were talking about, Philippe, is that you don't deploy successfully an IoT application if you don't have a way to transport that data. And that's why we moved and started working with companies who were allowing us to provide connectivity, and that's forced us also to look at our value proposition in terms of historically we were doing transactional relationship with the customers, but now we started to talk about recurrent billing to be able to address that needs of that market. And very quickly we noticed that we need to invest in capabilities in our organization to be able to move higher in the food chain and be able to offer cloud expertise, data analytics expertise, etc., to be able to catch up with the need of the market. This is an example of a partner that we engaged with for a long period of time. We're exactly doing what you're doing, partially is kind of moving the data from the devices into the cloud to be able to do, provide a strong value proposition in IoT. So basically the challenge that we were talking about, how can I take that data, move it to the cloud and be able to do data analytics and extract value that I can sell to customers. In this specific use case, we have a long-term customer called Linkso based in Toronto. They are a software company, but also a system integrator supplying systems for a transportation application, either airport, postal services, airlines. And they have been through a lot of challenges to service their customers. One of them is Milan Malpensa, where when Milan Malpensa started, very quickly they had a lot of success and the volume of traffic increased. So basically the challenge is how to automatize or help automatize that operation of Malpensa and be able to increase profitability, increase productivity, etc. So our customer, to be able to help them, we had to understand the need of their end customer. So the first engagement a couple of years ago was around supplying them devices or embedded devices. Then we had to adapt our offering to allow Linkso to increase their reach to the customer, address their needs by being able to deploy their system around the world in different environment where you don't have necessarily connectivity. So what's the benefit? The benefit is that for the customer, they've seen productivity increase. They were able to track the luggage. When you check that luggage, goes into the aircraft, and then when it lands in the airport, is unloaded using an RFID system that is connected to the cloud. It allowed also to be basically able to monitor the device, the productivity of that system, but also help our customer to generate a new value stream and basically start selling services to their end customers. So that's part of the journey that we're helping customers to address their needs.
Excellent. There. So the practice session actually was really good because we're on time, under budget. I love it. Because all of you were good enough to let us start a few minutes early. We've got a good 20 minutes for Q&A. We've got a number of setup questions we're going to do, but I want you to start thinking about questions yourself, because probably at the 10-minute mark we'll start to open it up for questions along the way. So you heard Philippe's reference to DNA, devices, networks, applications. Those really kind of define the key parts of an overall solution stack. And respectively, we have this set up here. You can think of Christian as the customer, if you will, in this regard. So for the three guys on the right, how did you transform your business models to be able to effectively help your customer be able to transform their business model? And I know this was your set of questions, so I'm going to let you start because I'm sure you've got it set.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So like I explained earlier, historically, a lot of companies are engaging with customer through a transaction. So I provide you a product, you pay me for that product. And that's the old model. But we realize that product, especially on the hardware side, becomes more and more a commodity. And customers are not really willing to put the working capital to be able to deploy that expensive hardware. So they were looking at new ways of paying you for that device of products that you offer. The other complexity that we heard earlier, you need to sell different stacks to your customer, meaning hardware, software, cloud, security, data plans, etc. So how you build those services are completely different. So now our CFO start to scratch his head and saying, wait a minute, I'm used to sell and buy, or buy and sell, sorry, and now I have to amortize that product and have a customers being able to sell those services on a recurrent basis, like a kind of Netflix membership. So the first thing that we had to do is how we value our P&L and balance sheet. That had to change completely. So we had to do a lot of work on the finance side and the back office side to be able to allow customer not to buy a product, but subscribe to a service. That's number one transformation. The second transformation that everybody is going through, and that's extremely challenging, is when I can find all those talents that are able to address needs of MVNO needs, or needs of connectivity, needs of hardware, needs of software, data analysts, etc. So that's another transformation, meaning that we had to bring talent from outside which are not used to the traditional way of doing business.
Okay. Good. Lee?
My answer is probably too short to be interesting, because as you said, product as a service, service as a product. Christian, you changed the way you do business. So acknowledging that we are a supplier, a vendor into this ecosystem, we created our business model from the beginning in order to cater to that new requirements, which means we're starting with a business model that's as service, so you pay per use, pay per month. There is almost no upfront fee. You can just start whenever you want, and always at the same cost. I think the key element that we've learned actually in the first year of doing what we do is that it needs to be predictable. If you do that on a monthly basis, that's fine, but if it's not predictable, how will the CFO ever be able to do just budgeting and amortization? So it doesn't, just to do it on a monthly basis is not good enough, but it needs to be predictable as well.
So it's very interesting because the as a service business model as a curve that nobody talks about, that there's a big loss in the beginning and then a recovery curve. So whenever you talk with customers about as a service business, you need to prepare them. They lose money. They will have tough moments. And so answering to your questions, you need to be a sparring partner for your customers. So I think you stop to selling products. You start to go to your customer journey together with your customer. And so it's exactly what we do. We stay together with them in the flow, in the bad moment, and then in the very good moment. So as a service business and pay-per-use business model generally takes a lot of commitment to stay together. So customer really becomes a partner. That's the summary.
Okay. And conversely, Christian, as your company goes and brings in an ecosystem of partners to help you develop these solutions, how have you had to change that aspect of your company to be able to work broader with an ecosystem of partners?
Indeed, a good question. I mentioned it's a very traditional industry. And it's a German company originally, and you might know this not invented here syndrome. Mm-hmm. So it's difficult to convince people that if they don't do it by themselves, it's still good, or it can still be good. So basically, we didn't start with technology, not at all. So basically it was really kind of design thinking stuff, going to the customer, standing on the shop floor, and really identifying the pain points, looking what really keeps these guys awake at night, and based on that, really identifying the core value which we can provide. And then there was no so much discussion anymore with whom we do it, because then it was clear why we do it.
Okay.
So basically that was the approach, but we should not come from a technology perspective from that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So we've seen that in the industrial IoT, a lot of people have said the ramp up wasn't as fast as we hoped. I think in a lot of cases they were applying IT adoption models to the OT space, and the OT space, as they say, a bug in IT and people are inconvenienced, a bug in OT and people are injured or worse, right? So it is a very conservative space, and it makes sense. When you guys think about your interactions with end clients who are adopting industrial IoT, what do you think what do you hear from them are the key challenges toward really scaling up their industrial IoT systems? And I'll open it up to anybody who'd like to jump in.
So that's probably the best question, because you need to talk with people that not technology people. So let me place an example of machine builders or any kind of production facility or any kind of company that is producing some physical hardware. First of all, they are selling products. So they are selling something measurable and with some features that fight against competition. They don't care about technology. So it was really great telling, if you want to sell IoT, you don't need to start talking about technology. That's the last point. Yeah. I think you need to carry with them the big needs. So you need to sit with them and talk to them about their pains. So where are you losing money in your process? Being your machine, being your product, the best product on the market, what is your pain points? Where are you losing money? And then we can go together to solve this issue. So we have plenty of technology, and Richardson is the greatest example of that. We have huge value in technology. We can carry this technology and take the value, but we wanna go together to make this. And this is the trade-off between OT and IT, I think.
If I may add to that, already today, a lot of companies are doing something in IoT, and if we believe the number, and I do believe the number that Microsoft has on their booster, 94% of all the companies will be doing IoT in 2021. The trouble we see with a lot of these companies is they're doing something because they think they need to do something, external pressure being one of the elements, so it's not, as you said, not quite understood why they're doing it and what exactly needs to be done. So certainly one of the challenges is to do the homework first, to truly understand what your business case is, to truly understand where your return on investment is, and also to understand and acknowledge when you will have that return on investment, because it's a different business model. The other point that we see quite a lot is just the sheer complexity of an IoT solution. It is an ecosystem play, because almost no company would be in a position to provide all of the things that you need. You need devices, you need network, you need applications. None of that is core to what you've done for the past 50, 200, however old your company is. So that sheer complexity is delaying and killing quite a few of the projects that we see. So understanding how to simplify the complexity of that, and maybe start small, is certainly a good idea in that regard.
Very good.
No, I fully agree with all of you. I mean, I'm not going to repeat what you're saying. There is a lot of challenges, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of analysts would tell you over 70% of IoT projects fail. Okay. I'll add one challenge. There is a lot of challenges, is really scaling within a customer or within a vertical market. I think the challenge we're facing is every application is different and there is no standardization. So basically, taking a use case or taking a vertical application and scale it, we're not yet there. There is a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. All right. So with that, let me go ahead and open it up. I believe there are 2 mics running around the room, and so if anybody'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. Spotlights are pretty bright here, so hopefully we can see. Anybody? Right in front here. Gentleman in front, is there a mic to come down, or you want to speak really loud? Oh, here we go.
The role of the hyperscale cloud providers in IoT platforms.
Actually, if you don't mind, I'll have you, sorry.
Yeah,
Let's use some technology.
What's your take on the role of the hyperscalers in terms of providing scalable infrastructure for edge management, machine learning and inference deployment at the edge, and all of these things around IoT and AI at the edge requires a lot of orchestration. So what's the role that they play, and are there any best practices to be learned here?
Yeah, great question. Anybody want to jump in?
Just to clarify, hyperscaler, you mean what exactly?
Yeah, the big guys.
exactly.
Right. We've seen these companies develop their own product portfolio quite dramatically towards our needs in the past few years, and I think that's a very important step to enable the simplification, which is very important to reduce the complexity. If and how they can leverage that to go more vertical maybe, or to do something that makes the whole solution or the whole complexity even simpler, I'm not sure, because as Rafi said, it is a different use case, different requirements, different technology. So there is common ground where we need these companies to develop further what they currently do, but there will always be a few things that you need to consider that's specific to your application. How you deal with edge, what do you mean by that, and whether you need it at all, for example.
Christian?
No, that's a good thing.
For me? Good. Oh, okay, so also for our IoT application, we work with AWS, indeed, because it's super simple for us. As an industrial company, it's easy to use. We got the training from Amazon, in this case, for example, to really, at least it was last year when we started, to really get a quick ramp up in the whole topic and to show the first successes. Of course, we are still discussing the role of this vendor lock-in, which will and can happen, other way around, can but probably will happen at one point, as soon as we start really scaling it to our customers. And this is still an open discussion. How many cloud providers do we need, or should we really fully put the strategy on cloud, or should we do something like move more on the strategy on edge computing? So get really everything on the machine at the customer side, because that's also a requirement. Many customers have a big issue to just pump all the data into a cloud, which is, sorry to say, not a European cloud in this case. So this is a very big discussion. So I've just attended the Digital Summit beginning of this week, where the Gaia X digital infrastructure data platform was announced to come in the next couple of 12 months, actually, across Europe. So this is, of course, an approach which we need to have an eye on, but it's an ongoing discussion. So we cannot just set or work with one provider. It will not work.
We actually had an interesting discussion before here. PointCounterpoint consolidation in IT space. Obviously, you can look at the past couple decades. But in the OT space, remember, this has been dominated by large industrial players that are largely regional. Schneider in France, as an example, Siemens in Germany. And ultimately, you've got two very different models. The question is, how much convergence is going to happen with data sovereignty and with these machines, or let's say the technology provided by these companies largely already being on the factory floor? So I think somewhere in the middle, there's going to be some convergence in the space. I do not think OT is a winner-take-all space. I think there is going to have to be some level of diversity there, primarily for the same reasons these industrial companies have existed for so long in the space, because of the specialization, either in the region or in the verticals that they operate as well. So it's an interesting dynamic. Did you want to add something before I jump to the next question?
Yeah. Very shortly, and probably answering to you was, there was a funny story by Richard Branson, and he was dealing with Virgin Music, and he just left Virgin Music when Apple iPods was coming for changing them, disrupting the music industry. So I don't know about edge versus hyperconnectivity, but I know about customer needs. So the real focus is what your customer is willing to do with this data, where he needs the data for. So Christian was right. There are customers that cannot transfer data on the cloud. There are customers that would love to stay on the cloud. It's up to the Microsoft of this world, the AWS of this world, to adapt to this business model. So in terms of, again, it's not an issue of technology, it's an issue on how to answer on the business needs. So the answer is probably both of the approach will be fine for the customer.
All right, we got another 5 minutes. Other question from the audience? I see somebody in the back here, right in front of the cameras. Can we run a mic over to him? Great, thank you.
Yeah, hello. I guess my question goes to Mr. Rafael Salmi. You are talking about you had to change all your business, like with regard to P&L, to be able to offer solutions related to the IoT. I guess my question is, how long did it take for you to make these changes? And also, probably you have to sell your products as well to the customers, and they have to change their P&L as well. If you have maybe some input there, and how it influences your solutions, because you have licensing, but now we want, like, people are used to subscription-based models, etc.
Excellent question, thank you. I will join what Francesca was saying. First is use case, what the customer needs. Some customers are ready to take on subscription and recurrent type of payments to you as a provider, and some are not ready. I mean, because they don't have an ERP system, they don't have a finance means to be able to address those type of needs. So in our case was relatively easy because it required, one, there is a lot of work has been done in the industry for a long period of time. So we're not reinventing the wheel. The model of Netflix, the model of Airbnb, all those models models that have subscription, there was a lot of work done by the finance community to move from a pure P&L balance sheet into more recurrent revenue type of P&L. So there is some best practices that we could take. That's from a theoretical standpoint when you handle financial transaction. And I recommend you, I mean, there is a lot of very good conferences around called Connected in San Francisco around that specific topic. The other piece is, what do I need to do? Because I have an ERP system if you're a manufacturer. And I have different IT or OT tools. So basically, you had to invest, especially if you are moving from a recurrent billing device. Either you do it on your own, which is expensive, or you use third parties who are very specialized. So the go-to-market really depends on the business case and the urgency you have to do it, but it's possible. It's not really impossible.
Sorry, if I may add to that, would be interesting to know how big your company is, because that has a huge influence on how successfully you do that. And you started, or you're on a very, very good way on that journey, but it does take time, and I've seen it over and over again, that the bigger the company, obviously, the more challenging that transformation is. But we need to understand that it does take a lot of time, because you're completely switching the revenue model, and you're most probably not going to see the result of that change within a few months. It will take years, 1, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, which is a long time. And if you don't have the patience to go there, it's going to be a difficult path.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday about a specific case of customers. There is another even different challenge is, okay, before, when you wanted to provide a service or a product, you talk to operation, or you talk to HR, or you talk to any division within a company. Now you are trying to sell a service that encompass hardware, which is amortized over a period of time, and services and connectivity. Now the customer will tell me, wait a minute, which budget should I do that? Put it in a finance budget, in operation budget, in HR budget. They don't know, and that's another hurdle that you have to help the customer. Some customers have an answer, some don't.
Yeah, it's a good point. And of course, with the talent, our exec search practices, it's a great question because we place a lot of chief digital officers. But traditionally, in good sales, you usually have to know who's the decision maker and who's the buyer. They may not always be the same. So in our last 1 minute and 20 seconds here, give me each of your answers for who's the decision maker traditionally in your key clients and who's the buyer.
Every customer is different, but if you are talking about providing an IoT solution, you have to have access to a C-suite level first, but then you have to have a buy-in from the different stakeholders within the organization. So it's a multiple answer.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, thanks to your great work as well. It is almost always a chief digital officer or a head of innovation, which is a good sign, and it can also be a difficult sign. It's a good sign because it means there is enough maturity in the company to understand what they're doing. But if on a C level you don't have support on all the other functions, it will take more time.
So thanks. In my opinion, is the owner of the problem. So the owner of the problem needs solution. So it could be normally the C-level needs to have the ownership of the issue and needs to understand where to go. Then it's pretty true, you need to go down and stay with them, and that's change management.
Christian?
5 seconds will be tough. I'm with you. It's the owner of the problem. So what we try to address is when we talk about productivity topics, when we talk about machines, it's definitely people on the shop floor. It's the production, head of production or factory lead who we address with these type of service. When we talk about new business model like pay-per-use, then it's probably more a CFO level. They are much more interested in these type of models. When we talk about maintenance topics, which we use IoT for, then of course these are service guys which are responsible that their service works. We come from, or we try to come from actually from the product families, and these product families imply automatically the right stakeholders. So it's not so often that we talk to CEOs. We just make sure that the C-1 or -2 are convinced, and then, I mean, that's a consulting approach, right? So.
Christian, Francesco, Philippe, and Raphael, thank you so much for a great panel, and thank you for being a great audience.